Of negotiating contracts, I really wish I knew Molly when I was crying in my office. Molly's amazing. I'd like to introduce you to someone who has successfully negotiated over $500 million in contracts and has represented hundreds of sports' biggest stars. She quickly became known as the Jerry Maguire, the female Jerry Maguire. I think she knows a thing or two about those at the top of their game. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you a true game changer, Molly Fletcher.
Thanks, Mika.
Thank you so much.
You are the best. Thank you. Unbelievable. Mika, thank you so much. Hey, it is absolutely awesome to be with you. I love a room full of women because I always love to tell this sort of fun story. So I had my first baby, and you know how after you have your first child, you're sort of laying in the hospital bed, and you're laying in there, and they come in, and they sort of tell you that if you don't find a way to nurse this baby isn't going to make it. Like, you have got to get that baby to latch on, and you have got to get it done, right? So I sort of drink that Kool-Aid, you know what I mean? Like, I have got to find a way to do this. They're telling me that my baby ain't going to make it. I mean, I got to do it. So sure enough, I drink the Kool-Aid. I start trying to nurse my first child. And as you know, the movie Jerry Maguire, I'm sure some of you have seen. So I'm about 3 or 4 months into this, and I'm nursing our first daughter, and I'm on my way to the Masters to go see one of our players. I'm based in Atlanta, and so I'm in my car, and I'm driving down I-20 about an hour and a half to go to the Masters to see one of my golfers who is competing in the Masters. So as I'm driving, you know that feeling you get, ladies? You know what I mean? Like that feeling? And the guys are like dying right now, but welcome to the Know Your Value conference, okay? So I get that feeling, and it's starting to come out, right? And so I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. What am I going to do? So sure enough, I bought the Medulla, the Mac Daddy breast pump, right? With the car charger, double. So I go ahead and put the charger in the car, right? I lock it up, strap it on, pull my shirt down, strap it on. I got the double pump going. Now I got my earpiece in because these athletes will call you any time of day or night. They don't care, and they need you in that exact moment. So it's strapped on, and I'm driving all of a sudden. And by the way, the truckers loved it. I mean, complete free show for the truckers. So I'm driving, and all of a sudden, John Smoltz calls, one of my baseball players, right? Who was a big league pitcher for the Braves, got inducted into the Hall of Fame this summer. Unbelievable human being, and obviously an incredible pitcher. So all of a sudden, Smoltzy calls. I've got my earpiece in. Hey, John, how's it going? We start talking, and all of a sudden he goes, Molly, what is that sound? I said, you know what, John? I said, you're a husband, you're a father. I said, you know what it is, man? I said, I'm pumping, okay? I'm pumping. I got to knock it out. I'm getting to the range. I said, I got to get it done. So many of you, I know, in this room have found yourself in that situation. So for 20 years, I negotiated contracts for a bunch of athletes and coaches and broadcasters, and it was an absolutely unbelievable journey. I completely loved it. I started my career at 24 working for a small agency in Atlanta. We had 4 or 5 clients at the time, a baseball player, a couple of them, and a couple NBA coaches. And so he brought me in, the gentleman that owned the agency, to start negotiating endorsement deals, appearances, trade outs, car deals. And I dove right into that, and I loved it. And so for 2 or 3 years, I really was doing that for these half dozen clients that we had. And then after about 2 years, I sort of saw a gap. I felt like there was an opportunity to go out and recruit more players. The big money in the agent business is made when you negotiate their contracts with their team or their network, right, or their university, or for golfers with their manufacturers. So I really felt like I needed to go there and try to sign baseball players, sign PGA Tour players, sign more NCAA coaches so that we could bring more talent in to negotiate their deals. So I see this gap. I'm 24, 25 years old. I put a business plan together to go walk into our CEO to tell him how I believe we can pursue this market. Of course, he's sort of a wonderful man, but looks at me and says, you didn't play big league baseball, right? Obviously. You didn't coach in the NBA. You didn't coach at the college level. What's this look like? So I sell him on the opportunity. I sell him on the opportunity that exists certainly in the Southeast, but also obviously nationally. So he gives me the green light to go in and recruit more guys and more gals. So quickly I found myself, right, behind dugouts on the range at PGA Tour events, recruiting these athletes and coaches. So after going to bat for the guys and gals that we represented, after a couple years, I found myself at a point where it was time to go to bat for me. It was time to recognize the value that I had and that I could contribute to the athletes and coaches in the world that we wanted to work with. So fast forward 20 years, we had about 300 guys and negotiated about $500 million in deals. It was an unbelievably awesome journey. I tell that story because to me it was an amazing journey and an amazing experience. But what I believe so often in life, right, when we think about knowing our value, it's about trading comfort for courage. Trading fear at times for vulnerability. That was a scary journey that I was about to go on. But how do we have the courage to trade fear for vulnerability? How do we have the wherewithal to trade comforts sometimes for courage? When we do those things, really powerful things can happen. So after several years, we recruit a lot of different guys, and all of a sudden I find myself in the office of the general manager of the Atlanta Braves, negotiating about the third contract for John Smoltz that our agency had worked on. So I walk in with the head agent, the owner of our agency at the time, and I sit down in the office of the GM of the Braves. And as I'm sitting there, he doesn't know who I am. He certainly knows the agent. And I'm sitting there, and he's sort of looking at me like, why did you bring your attorney? Why did you bring a secretary to take notes on this conversation we're about to have? And he was paying truly no attention to me, and I felt no value. I felt, what was I going to contribute to this conversation? And so in that moment, I had a choice. I can sit here and hope that maybe one day this man will figure out I have something to add to this conversation. Or I had another option, which was to try to stay curious. To try to stay curious and find an authentic opportunity to try to connect to him. So after a couple minutes, I finally see behind him these rotating golf holes, unbelievably beautiful golf holes. And I start to recognize them, and I think, that's Augusta National. Boy, that's that beautiful par 3, number 12 at Augusta National. Wow. So they're slowly rotating. I'm watching it. He's paying no attention to me. And all of a sudden, it comes back to number 12. And I looked at him, and I said, God, those are unbelievable golf holes. He sort of swivels his chair around, looks back at it, and goes, oh, yeah, those are golf holes from Augusta National. I said, yeah, they're unbelievable. I said, number 12. I said, that par 3 with the azaleas. I said, incredible. He said, yeah. I said, I'm sure you've played it a bunch. He goes, oh, yeah, absolutely. And I said, what'd you get on 12? I said, unbelievable, right? What'd you get? He goes, oh, I played it actually about a month ago. He said, and I parred it. And I said, wow. I said, awesome. And he starts walking me through it, right? 9-iron in, right? I was on the left side, right? You know how these guys do this, right? I'm like, by the way, how do you remember everything that you did? It's incredible. And I said, you got to be kidding me. I said, wow. I sort of paused and I said, I played it last week and I birdied it. You know, in that moment, we connected. In that moment, I found an opportunity to try to connect. So when we find ourselves in the room in those moments, well, I would encourage you to stop and pause and say, how do I trade this moment, this anxiety inside of me because I'm not connecting? How do I trade the option of staying invisible and not finding a lane and not finding a way to connect with curiosity? Because then we can find an authentic way, hopefully, to truly connect. But there have been certainly times, a lot of times in my career, where I've allowed that fear maybe to not show my value, to not connect, where that's suffocated the opportunity to truly be curious. So we're in Orlando. I needed to tell you a couple stories about a couple of my Orlando guys. One of the guys that we represented is Billy Donovan. Billy Donovan was the head coach of Florida, right, for a long, long time. Florida fans in the room, right? So I'm sure we've got some Magic fans in the room too, right? Some Orlando Magic fans, good. So Billy comes to us and he says, listen, I want to go to the NBA. I want to go to the NBA. I want to coach, 80 games. I want to get out of this recruiting rat race of college basketball. We said, great. We said, well, Billy, you're a heck of a basketball coach. You've had an incredible amount of success at the college level. So we need to look for the right opportunity, right? I mean, we need to interview any NBA team as much as they interview you. Billy certainly agrees. About 6 months go by, and we learn that the head job of the Magic is going to open up. So we think this is a great job for Billy. This is a great fit for Billy. We looked at the player roster with the GM. Certainly the owners of the Magic are a fantastic family. We felt like this was a great fit. We called Billy. We said, hey, Billy, listen, this job at the Magic's going to open up. What do you think? Are you interested? Billy said, gosh, absolutely. I'm definitely interested. We said, great. We called the team. They said, oh, yeah, he's actually at the top of our list. We said, great. We began to negotiate the terms of the deal. Everything from the base salary, right, to the bonuses, to the country clubs, to the flights for his wife, to the schools for his kids, to the car deal, you name it, to the win bonuses. We negotiate all the terms of the deal. It was a great contract. Billy felt great about the deal. He flies in from Gainesville to Orlando. We fly from Atlanta to Orlando. We land, we get in a car, and we drive over to the arena for Billy to do a press conference, right, to announce that he's the new coach of the Magic. So we walk in, he signed 6 original contracts in the boardroom, and as I'm sitting in the boardroom, I look over the boardroom table, and on the other side is a glass window. And on the bottom below that is a basketball court. And on the basketball court is all the media, right, ready to announce the new basketball coach to do the press conference. So we walk down, Billy takes care of everybody. He does a great job. He nails the press conference, answers the questions great. We talk to the Orlando media. We talk to the national media. Billy nails it. We get back into a car. We fly back to Atlanta. Billy flies back to Gainesville. This is great. We need to celebrate, right? It's a Friday night. We just made a client a lot of money and certainly and took him down a road of a new opportunity that he had said that he wanted. So we go to this absolutely incredible restaurant in Atlanta. We order an amazing bottle of wine, right? We're halfway through the bottle of wine. Billy calls and says, hey, listen, I want to bring one of my assistant coaches with me. We like referrals, don't we, right, ladies? We said, yeah, sure, Billy, done. We'll do that deal. We negotiate that contract right then. So we ordered another bottle of wine, right? I mean, what the heck, you know? 7:30 the next morning. I'm cooking breakfast for our daughters, and the phone rings. Billy calls. Hey, listen, that Magic's job, I don't want that job. I don't want that job. I just want to stay at Florida. So go ahead and call the Magic. Tell them they have been absolutely amazing. They've been wonderful. But just have them rip up those 6 contracts, and I'm going to stay at Florida. Wow. So in that moment, obviously, we wanted to make sure Billy was crystal clear, right? And by the way, right, I have absolutely never wanted wine to come back up out into the bottle and go back so bad in my life. So sure enough, we take about 4 or 5 days and unwind this deal for Billy. And Billy stays at Florida and is now back in the NBA. But it was a moment when I allowed my fear to suffocate my opportunity to be curious. It was a moment in which we never had the courage to ask Billy the really tough questions. We didn't ask Billy, hey, Billy, are you ready to look at those young men that you promised you were going to be their basketball coach and say, I'm out of here, I'm going to the NBA, I'm leaving Florida? Are you ready, Billy, to look at the fans in Florida that have supported you in Gainesville year after year and say, thank you for absolutely everything, but I'm out of here, I'm going to the NBA? I was too scared to ask those tough questions because I didn't know what that would do to the deal. So often in life, you know, we walk out of a room and we go, awesome, it didn't come up. Or we're scared, aren't we, sometimes to bring it up? Mika and Joe have talked about that and how powerful it is. We have to stay curious in those moments so that we can truly connect. I never said to Billy, hey, Billy, after 2 years in the NBA, if you're not winning, you get fired. It's not like college basketball. They don't give you as much time when you're making $5 to $8 million a year. Are you ready for that? Are you ready for what that looks like? I allowed the fear of being curious to suffocate the opportunity for us to ask Billy the really tough questions. When we ask those tough questions for ourselves or for the people that we work with, that's when we really, really connect. So we have our first child, and about 3-4 months later, all of a sudden I feel like weird, right? I think this is crazy. And so I think, what the heck? There's absolutely no way I'm pregnant, but geez, I don't know, right? And so guys, you're going to learn something here, right? This is going to be good. And ladies, you got to have my back on this story, okay? So guys, we have our first baby, and we go to the doctor after we have our first child. And we walk in, and the doctor says, hey, everything looks great. You know, you're good to go. You know what I mean? Like, you're good to go. You're good to go. And we go home to our husbands, and they say, hopefully, right? Gosh, honey, how was your appointment? How'd it go? Yeah, honey, it was amazing. Everything went great. But you know what was crazy? The doctor said another month. So this is the thing, guys. You have been getting screwed, okay? I mean, not really screwed. So I did all that, right? So I feel pregnant, though. This is crazy. So I call my doctor, and I said, you're not going to believe this. I said, but I think I might be pregnant. And she goes, you got to be kidding me. I said, I know, right? She starts laughing. She said, well, you need to come in. We got to see what's going on. I said, absolutely, right? So I get in my car. I drive over to the doctor's office, and I get over there. We walk in. And by the way, my husband comes to this appointment with me. You know, he's going to wear this deal with me. So we walk in, and I go back to the room, and I lay down on the deal, right? And as I lay down, she said, well, let's see what's going on. She puts the little thing on my stomach, right? And as I'm laying there and talking to my husband, I look over at the TV screen, and she goes, oh, my gosh. And I said, what? She said, Molly, this baby is measuring at 12 weeks. She said, you're 12 weeks pregnant. I said, you got to be kidding me, right? I said, no, that's happening in another room. Okay, like that's not happening in here. And she goes, oh no, you're 12 weeks pregnant. I go, you gotta be kidding me, right? Now like real live daggers are flying out of my eyes to my husband. All of a sudden, about 2 minutes later, she sort of pauses and she goes, oh my gosh. She said, check this out. She puts a line on the screen, puts another baby on the screen. She goes, oh my gosh, Molly, you are 12 weeks pregnant with twins. So you have a 3-month-old at home, right? And you have twins on the way, okay? Talk about a real live fire drill, you know? So we can't believe it. Well, all of a sudden, it's 12:15. I looked down at my watch, and I said, oh, my gosh. I said, listen, I got a lunch with Doc Rivers, who was the head coach, right, at the time. And I said, I got to go. I said, I got to go. So I get in my car. I'm racing out of the office. I'm driving, 80 miles an hour to this appointment. And I'm walking into this meeting with Doc. On the way, I call my mom to let her know, right? We're really close. I said, hey, Mom, just FYI, I just left the doctor's office, right? I said, I just found out. I said, you're not going to believe it. I said, but I'm actually pregnant. Oh, my gosh, Molly, you got to be kidding me. She's livid. She finally calms down, and I said, but, Mom, just so you know, I said, actually, it's twins. Oh, my gosh. She goes insane on me. I park my car, I run into this meeting with Doc. And as I'm walking into this meeting with Doc, it was a moment when, who's a wonderful man, by the way, do I tell him about this whole twins thing? Or do I just set it over here in this moment and have a conversation with Doc about Doc? He had a lot of stuff going on in his life. He had about 45 minutes before he needed to go to shoot around. He needed to talk about Doc in that moment. It was a moment in which I needed to be intentional about parking this whole thing over here and locking in on Doc. It's so hard in the world that we live in to be truly present. It's also, I believe, so hard to figure out, when do we speak up? When are the right moments? About a week later, I told Doc about these miracles that came into our life, right, who are now 11, and unbelievable gifts. But it was a moment in which I had to get really clear on, when do we speak up? When do we, and when do we wait? When do we look for the right opportunities so that when we do speak up, we connect? Because when we connect, that's when we get deals done. When we connect, magical things can happen. So fast forward to the next scene, right? After 15 years, I negotiate $500 million in contracts, right? We signed 300 unbelievable athletes and coaches. It was an incredible journey. It was a journey in which I spent a lot of time understanding the value because I was negotiating on behalf of somebody else. And we as women are unbelievable, aren't we, at negotiating for other people. We'll storm into that 5th grade teacher, won't we, and we'll let her know what we need, right? We're really good at that. But what about when it's about what we need? So after 15 years of negotiating contracts for athletes and coaches, I loved it. It was an amazing journey. I enjoyed absolutely every second of it. But then what I began to realize is, gosh, I love at the core the opportunity to connect with people. What I realized that mattered the most to me was really taking raw relationships and turning them into authentic connections, was helping people, athletes, coaches, but at a broader scale, everybody capitalize on their window of time in life to do really amazing, special things. I wrote a book and I realized, gosh, these experiences over the last 15 or 20 years translate way beyond sports. I began to really know that there was a value there, an opportunity to contribute and share these cool experiences with women like you, with people, so that they could, at the core, wake up just like I had done for my athletes and be their very, very best selves. So in 2011, I left a job making almost about $500,000 a year. I had $25,000 on the books for speaking engagements. It was so scary, but it was an opportunity to trade comfort for courage. It was an opportunity to suffocate that fear and go after what was most important. It was an opportunity to take the experiences that I've had and deliver them to people in a way that would allow each and every person to be their very, very best selves, to know and capitalize on their true value. Because I truly believe, right, when we discover our value, when we tap into that, when we have the courage to speak up and ask for what we want in life, unbelievably and amazing special things can happen. But it starts with speaking up, and it starts with knowing our value. Thank you so much. You guys are great fun. It was awesome to be with you.
Yes, so crazy right now.
Thank you. Great job. Wow. Molly Fletcher.